Sasuke Uchiha is undoubtedly one of the strongest characters in Naruto. Nobody would really dispute that. However, with the awakening of his Rinnegan, he truly rises to a divine level with what he's able to do in the verse. Today we are going to talk about lore-accurate 6 paths or Rinnegan Sasuke. The inspiration for this video was 6's lore-accurate Minato video. I'll put that in the description. You know, that good stuff. And yeah, let's get into the video. Before we touch on Sasuke's Rinnegan and what he's able to achieve with it, I want to discuss how his potential shifts whenever he unlocks a higher stage of Dojutsu, especially since Sasuke's latent ability is kind of a moving goalpost that gets upped as soon as his visual Dojutsu also goes up. The first real metric we have is Kakashi judging Sasuke off of the tree climbing exercise, where when noting Naruto's ability to grow up and become stronger, he implies that he has more latent abilities than Sasuke, as he notes, his latent abilities dwarf even those of Sasuke, and perhaps mine as well. However, contextually it seems closer that he's more so judging these two off chakra quantity, as he makes a direct note about them prior in this regard. However, even if we didn't say this is just base Sasuke as well, whose growth is expedited with the awakening of his Sharingan, to the point it just reaches Kakashi's level or surpasses it, as Data Book 1 goes as far as to say, at least in reference to Sasuke during the Chunin exams, it looks like he will grow into a being equal or superior to Kakashi in the future. This would also make more sense with Sasuke having more latent talent than characters like Kakashi, as Sasuke, Naruto, and Haku are the only characters in Data Book 1 who have a 5 out of 5 in the latent ability category compared to Kakashi, who has a 4 out of 5. And I want a lot of people to keep in mind Sasuke's Sharingan expediting this process, since we actually do see that he only gets out of his hospital bed 15 days before his match with Gaara, or the next set of matches in the Chunin exams are set to begin. It also being shown that this is distinctly when he goes to Kakashi to train him, meaning that Sasuke actually mastered Lee's taijutsu and the Chidori in just 15 days, or a little over 2 weeks. A more roundabout way of looking at it is that awakening the Sharingan sets Sasuke from being generally lower to Kakashi in terms of latent ability to actually being on his level or being able to eclipse him, which is also supported in other entries such as Sasuke actually being noted to surpass his Kekkei Genkai himself. It's a pretty big consistency that it just elevated where he could go as a shinobi. I believe this sentiment does continue and extend to other characters such as Itachi with Sasuke's general Sharingan or his Mangekyo feats, despite the fact that I do believe Sasuke only really eclipses Itachi as a whole with his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, as that's really just stated. Orochimaru in part 1, someone who has a good idea of what Itachi is capable of, notes that Sasuke can see and conceal things with those eyes that Itachi himself never even dreamed of. Even assuming Orochimaru is working off incomplete data on Itachi, someone who is more well versed on Itachi's abilities makes a similar sentiment in the form of Obito after witnessing Sasuke's fight with Deidara, noting his Sharingan is at full power, his eyes will eventually surpass Itachi's. I believe Sasuke really embodies this, however, with his Mangekyo Sharingan. You see other characters make note about Sasuke's abilities and how he uses his Mangekyo, being a sign that shinobi themselves are still evolving. Yuki or the Eight-Tails makes this sort of sentiment after B's fight with Sasuke, with C after seeing Sasuke fight the Raikage and manipulate the Amaterasu flames with far greater finesse than Itachi, also believing that shinobi are still continuing to evolve and that Sasuke may have actually defeated B. Keep in mind that no other shinobis really talked about in this manner, in just their abilities dictate that shinobi are continuing to progress and evolve, which I do think is pretty telling to Sasuke as a whole. I think this also works in tandem with his performance during the 5 Kage Summit, as we actually see Sasuke in the span of a day achieve the same armored Susanoo that Itachi showcased in his fight with Sasuke. This is all kind of relevant since the databook directly notes that this variation of the Susanoo is only granted to those who have achieved mastery beyond the Mangekyo Sharingan. So Sasuke actually just reached a similar level to Itachi in his Mangekyo mastery in the span of a day. Maybe if you want to include the B fight and things that happen in Sasuke Jinraiden, you could say it's a couple different days. However, the general idea is that Sasuke's Susanoo development really just happened in a day, no doubt also expedited by the hatred amps that he was garnering throughout the summit that his body directly responded to. So you're noticing a clear progression. Sasuke in base, maybe below Kakashi, gets the Sharingan, can reach Kakashi's level or beyond that. Sasuke also has these ties to Itachi with the Mangekyo Sharingan, is also able to reach these levels. Even if he isn't quite at Itachi's level, I do think if Sasuke just paced himself a little better, he could have inevitably reached that point before his eyes really went out. When Sasuke breaks through to the next threshold, the benchmark in terms of latent ability or who he's meant to eclipse changes from Itachi to Madara himself, each elevated Dojutsu form really just creating a higher and higher ceiling for Sasuke that he's able to tap into or has the ability to use to the utmost potential. And we see this since once we see Sasuke use the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan and combine Jugo's curse mark with the Susanoo, Tobirama makes note that Sasuke shows the same potential Madara once did, with Orochimaru making note that unlike any of his experiments and based on the intel he's gathered over the course of his life, that Sasuke will be a shinobi who one day surpasses Madara. In a similar scenario to the 5 Kage Summit, we see Sasuke is able to master his Dojutsu very quickly as we see him form the majestic attire Susanoo. That being the Susanoo that wraps around the Nine Tails that at least when we see with Madara and when he wraps the Susanoo around the Nine Tails, which is the only other metric we have, May deems it the true Susanoo. I'm of the opinion Sasuke had to at least reach this metric in order to actually wrap his version of the Susanoo around the Kyuubi. Even if you're of the opinion he doesn't fully have it, I think that's fine. More so, I want to point attention to the fact that Sasuke reached this level in the span of not even having his Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan for a day. I think this development comes full circle, especially when Sasuke reaches his Rinnegan, the topic of today's video that I'm finally getting around to talking about, in that with his Rinnegan, he is able to perform feats even comparable to Hagoromo himself when Hagoromo was able to split up the Bijou. Sasuke, in using his Rinnegan, is actually able to extract the chakra from the Bijou who are under Genjutsu in the Chibaku Tensei without actually absorbing the Bijou into the Geto Mazo, instead using his Susanoo as the medium, powering it up further, pretty much making it so Sasuke can bypass all of the organic limitations of actually becoming a 10 Tails Jinchuriki, disseminating the chakra into one on an almost unrivaled level. In Kurama's own words, that's exactly on the Sage of Six Paths' level. I think I've painted a pretty clear picture in reference to Kakashi, Itachi, Madara, and even Hagoromo himself, and how Sasuke not only reaches these characters' levels, but how the time frame for how quickly he's able to reach them with each subsequent Dojutsu bump just shortens dramatically. A lore accurate Sasuke is going to be able to master any Dojutsu faster than anybody next to him, with the time frame needed to master each Dojutsu being shorter and shorter for Sasuke as he goes higher and higher. In lore, Sasuke is simply mastering everything at a faster rate than even the most prodigious characters in the verse. But what else is lore accurate Rinnegan Sasuke really capable of? Well, he also should have all of the Rinnegan abilities. We know of 2 he can use in manga, that being the Preda Path and Chibaku Tensei, with the anime extending this to the Diva Path as well. It's also very worth noting that Sasuke's version of Chibaku Tensei is a specialized version that is far superior, at least in my eyes, to the regular version that Pain and Madara use, in that Sasuke makes the opponents or the target the center of gravity, and there is no black orb in the middle that can actually be destroyed by charging attacks and sending them into the center. Instead of getting pulled into the Chibaku Tensei forms around you. You can't really fight it because you are the Chibaku Tensei, which is pretty wicked work if I'm being honest. But I do want to spin back on Sasuke having all of the Rinnegan abilities, since this may be a contentious point to some people. Sasuke does directly know after the Kaguya fight that he's become quite familiar with the abilities, plural, and use of the Rinnegan during this battle. We only see Sasuke use Amino Tajikara on screen, yet he intrinsically knows how to use jutsu such as Chibaku Tensei and the Preda Path despite never using them in battle before this point. Meaning the argument of he doesn't show them means he doesn't have them doesn't really work, since there's no evidence the existing abilities are some sort of exception outside all of them which Sasuke generally references. Argumentatively, it's a bigger assumption to actually assume he only has a select few of the abilities compared to just having them all. I do want to be clear though, this does not mean he has the same abilities as every other Rinnegan user, such as Nagato, who via utilizing the outer path does directly control and link himself to his summons, all of which have black receivers implanted in them so they have shared vision with Nagato himself, similar to Obito's Edo Tensei Paths of Pain or Nagato's own Paths of Pain. The black receivers themselves are kind of a tangent point that I don't want to get into in this specific video. The ability to create and manipulate them are much closer to being able to use Shadow and Light style, in which Sasuke only has Yin release, or being directly synced up with the Geto Mazo. Either way, Sasuke's not going to be summoning the exact same summons as Nagato, as he doesn't have a summoning contract with the summons from that specific dimension, or have the innate ability to actually see from other summons via injecting them with chakra receivers. Sasuke also does meet the direct criteria to use Rinnegan abilities such as Shinra Tensei, which know only those who can manipulate all chakra natures possessing the legendary Rinnegan are allowed to own this jutsu, in which Sasuke does possess all 5 chakra natures. This would be in line with other Uchiha who have one Rinnegan, such as Obito, who utilize the outer path in controlling the Edo Jinchuriki and being able to perform Rinne Rebirth, coupled with chakra chains that he uses to restrict the Bijou. While you could make the case that the abilities are split when the user only has one eye, this isn't really a supported take in my opinion. It kind of just argues because we don't see the user use all of the abilities, but like we established earlier, they don't need to use all of the abilities to know how to use them. As in Sasuke's case, he just knows how to use multiple Rinnegan abilities despite not showing all of them, partially due to the fact that these abilities do get clipped pretty hard by his full power, meaning they wouldn't have been that useful in reference to his fight with Naruto. In the case of Obito as well, Kakashi himself implies that Obito should be able to use all of the Rinnegan abilities, and more so doesn't, because Kakashi, Guy, and Naruto would more so know how to counter those abilities, meaning it'd more so just be a waste of chakra. So a lore accurate Sasuke would have this insane progression with whatever dojutsu he's using, all of the Rinnegan abilities, along with having the strongest genjutsu in the verse outside the infinite Tsukiyomi, which he can also resist. This is just due to the fact that Rinnegan genjutsu is showcased to be stronger than Sharingan genjutsu, since the only two in question are Sasuke's and Madara's, which are a step above in potency and feats than any of the Sharingan feats we have during the series. This also makes quite a bit of sense since Sasuke was already approaching high levels with his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, with 6 paths as a whole actually boosting and augmenting ocular powers, showcased with him being able to put all 9 Bijou under control at a single glance. This pretty much means anybody not close to Sasuke himself in terms of strength is just gonna get negative dipped in terms of genjutsu, as they overall just wouldn't have the strength to resist his genjutsu. This is pretty consistent, especially when you consider statements such as the last guidebook, which directly note that Sasuke does have the strongest dojutsu, so him also having the strongest genjutsu outside the infinite Tsukiyomi does make quite a bit of sense. So lore accurate Sasuke has unparalleled progression with his dojutsu. He has all of the Rinnegan abilities, the strongest genjutsu. What else would he be capable of? Well, as if Sasuke wasn't already one of the most broken characters by the end of the war arc, and also the most balanced at that, Kishimoto did throw in giving Sasuke space-time ninjutsu, which made him far more elusive as a fighter. This takes form in Amino Tajikara, which essentially allows Sasuke to swap with anything in his FOV or field of view. This actually gets circumvented as an adult to where Sasuke doesn't even have to be looking at objects that he's swapping with, or is seemingly able to swap people in with smoke itself. It creates a situation to where on any battlefield he's nigh untouchable, and circumvents any process that FTG users have, where they have to have pre-placed marks or pre-placed kunai in order to actually teleport. Ironically, it actually requires 2 FTG users using a round reciprocal Robin to replicate exactly what Sasuke does on a daily basis with Amino Tajikara. So Sasuke could really just teleport in your face or put you in a position to where you're forced in a line of sight, Genjutsu GG, or teleport behind you and use the Naraka path to extract your soul. In a combat setting, there's just limitless application for what this space-time ninjutsu can do, hence why it's so useful even against characters far stronger than Sasuke himself in the form of Kaguya, Momoshiki, Jigen, and Ishiki. If it moves, he's gonna swap with it. That's the bottom line with Sasuke and Amino Tajikara. So we have all of this plus space-time ninjutsu making Sasuke far more elusive, but it doesn't stop there. On top of having the perfect Susanoo, his perfect Susanoo is now amped by 6 paths. Just like all of Sasuke's other abilities, this is seen as well with Kakashi in his perfect Susanoo, meaning as an adult, he has the strongest perfect Susanoo that also has the rare benefit of also being able to fly, giving him a huge advantage in a lot of fights, since pretty much every 6 paths tier character is able to fly. However, if you think about this outside the god tiers of the verse, Sasuke being able to fly up has terrible repercussions for everybody else, especially when you consider that Sasuke is really one of the only characters that outside the MS abilities is able to filter his own techniques through the Susanoo. In the manga, we see Sasuke is actually able to form Chidori in his Susanoo's palm, which is able to rival Naruto's Bijou Bomb in terms of destructive power and potency, and the anime actually extends this further, with Sasuke actually being able to shoot fireballs from the Susanoo as well, creating enough firepower to where he's able to summon Kirin in the fight. This is pretty insane since it essentially means that the ceiling for what Sasuke is able to do in base does get applied to his Susanoo, meaning if there's an ability Sasuke can use in his base form, such as grabbing Enton and changing its chakra form to actually use in battle, or something like Chidori, you can make the case his perfect Susanoo could probably do that. It's pretty much a low ceiling, but also when you consider that he's using an A rank jutsu on his chakra avatar, everything below that should also fall in line. So lore accurate Sasuke does have the potential to use more and more techniques in his chakra avatar. Keep in mind that a majority of these feats being performed are on a version of Sasuke whose Rinnegan is described as unmastered, meaning this is all done with the absolute bare minimums, yet he's able to push it to such extremes, redefining what we know in this series itself. This is pretty in line with what I've noted earlier, with Sasuke defining shinobi norms. No matter what visual prowess he has, he's always going to pull off something new that the shinobi world really hasn't seen before. The thing that holds Sasuke back from doing a lot of this, aside from the characters in question just being too strong to where a lot of these abilities really wouldn't be too effective against them, is also writing, as when you have a character that has so many abilities, it's way too difficult to balance that out, especially when you consider these abilities aren't that relevant in reference to these characters' full power. Thus, some of this does get left under the rug or swept under the table for the more powerful stuff. And I think a lot of points that we see with Sasuke just extend to his chakra avatar, such as him being able to apply Enton to Chidori, which is something these Storm games take the liberty of showing, but I think it's entirely in line with what Sasuke can do. As we established, he can filter his own techniques through the Susanoo, and we know he can't actually stack Enton with Chidori, so him being able to do it on a larger scale is just pretty consistent if he wants to add firepower to his techniques. There's basically two tiers of amps you could really make the argument for Sasuke. There's the 6 Paths amp, which raised all of his abilities, even his basic fireball, which Naruto needed a chakra arm to actually stop. With him being unable to crush the fireball, yes, his grip strength actually does scale to the chakra arms, as he couldn't even grip rocks when training them, with Sasuke also able to use the same techniques in his perfect Susanoo, in which case they would also be leveled up further, as obviously Sasuke's basic Chidori isn't as powerful as Naruto's 6 Paths Kurama Avatar's Bijou Bombs. So everything I mentioned can just be taken up a notch, and you can just apply it to Sasuke's avatar, obviously within reason. We obviously aren't going to say his avatar is going to shoot out a Madarasu or cast nationwide Genjutsu. The last point I'll make for Sasuke, at least in lore, that kind of gets swept under the rug, is that at least visually, he's actually compared to Hamura and Naruto is compared to Hagoromo before Hagoromo actually absorbs the 10 Tails, Kaguya actually mistaking the two of them for Hagoromo and Hamura's reincarnates. I actually do think this, at least visually, implies that Naruto and Sasuke are of a similar caliber to those versions of Hagoromo and Hamura. This more so reading off what Kaguya says and being based in portrayal rather than just being directly stated, which is another point you can extrapolate for Sasuke as a whole. Like the video if you enjoyed, hype it up maybe. Let me know if you guys want to see more of these lore accurate videos. I think they're fun, they're different. Let me know if you guys want to see this for other characters. I personally would like to do the Madara one, but I'm open to anybody, you know, like I'll do whatever you guys want as long as you keep chanting my name, you know. That's the video. I'm gonna catch you next time. Bye bye.